Christmas morning was supposed to be about family warmth and the kind of memories that carry you through the darker months ahead. I had worked 60-hour weeks for 3 months straight, pulling overtime at my IT consulting firm just to afford the perfect gifts for everyone. The drive to my childhood home in suburban Denver felt peaceful with fresh snow covering the familiar streets and holiday lights twinkling from every house. I carried bags full of thoughtfully chosen presents, including a new tablet for my twin nieces and a vintage watch I'd found for Dad. Walking through that front door, I expected hugs, laughter, and maybe Mom's famous cinnamon rolls. Instead, during our traditional gift exchange, my father Harold handed me an official-looking envelope with my name written in his careful block letters. Inside was an itemized bill for $8,800, labeled as my contribution to a luxury European vacation. When I stammered that I hadn't been invited, Dad's smile turned cold as winter air. "You're paying not attending," he said matter-of-factly. "Your sister's kids need this experience more than you need the money." The silence that followed felt like a physical weight pressing down on the living room. I stared at the papers in my trembling hands, trying to process what was happening, while my family watched with expressions ranging from guilt to expectation. My mother Patricia sat rigidly in her favorite armchair, avoiding eye contact by focusing intensely on her coffee mug. My sister Jessica perched on the edge of the couch, with her arms crossed, while her husband Mark leaned against the fireplace mantel with what I could only describe as smug satisfaction. The itemized bill was professionally formatted, complete with a spreadsheet breakdown that someone had clearly spent considerable time preparing. First-class airfare to Paris for 4 people, $2,400. Luxury hotel accommodations across 3 European cities for 21 days, $3,200. Daily meal allowances, entertainment budgets, shopping stipends, and miscellaneous travel expenses, another $3,200. Every detail had been calculated down to the penny. My confusion quickly transformed into something deeper and more painful as the full scope of this betrayal began revealing itself. Jessica cleared her throat and explained with practiced casualness that they'd been planning this trip for months. Family meetings had been held every Tuesday evening at Romano's Italian restaurant downtown, the same place where we used to celebrate birthdays when I was younger. Everyone had attended these planning sessions except me. They discussed destinations, researched hotels, compared flight options, and calculated expenses while I worked late nights, debugging software systems, and troubleshooting network problems for demanding clients. Harold justified their deception by claiming I owed the family for all the support they'd provided during my childhood. He reminded me of the times they'd helped with college expenses, though conveniently overlooked how I'd worked 3 part-time jobs to minimize their financial burden. He mentioned the family business struggles when his construction company nearly folded during the recession, ignoring how I'd contributed my entire savings account to keep them afloat during that crisis. According to his twisted logic, my recent promotion and salary increase meant I could finally repay these long-standing debts. The revelation that my financial information had somehow become common family knowledge hit me like a physical blow. My mother sheepishly admitted she'd been discussing my career success with neighbors during their weekly bridge games. Word had traveled through their social circle about my consulting firm's expansion and my advancement to senior project manager. Apparently, my improved income had been analyzed and dissected by people I barely knew before my own family decided how much of it they deserved. Jessica then delivered what felt like the cruelest manipulation of all. She called for Emma and Sophie, my 12-year-old nieces, to come downstairs from their room. These beautiful, innocent girls bounded into the living room, wearing matching Christmas pajamas, their faces bright with excitement as they thanked their Uncle Gavin for planning their dream vacation to Europe. They hugged me tightly, chattering about the Eiffel Tower and Italian gelato while my heart broke into smaller pieces. Jessica had been promising them this trip for months using my name and my money, without ever bothering to ask my permission. Mark's contribution to this nightmare came in the form of casually mentioning how they'd already made all the bookings. They'd used my excellent credit score as a reference for group discounts and travel packages. When I demanded to know how they'd accessed my credit information, the uncomfortable glances exchanged between family members told me everything I needed to know. Someone had been collecting my personal details through methods I hadn't yet discovered. The pressure intensified when my girlfriend Lauren called during the middle of this confrontation. My phone rang with her cheerful voice, asking about Christmas morning plans, and the entire room fell silent as they waited to see how I'd handle the call. Jessica immediately whispered that I shouldn't tell Lauren anything, yet suggesting this was a private family matter that outsiders wouldn't understand. Harold nodded approvingly, clearly expecting me to maintain their secret, while they continued manipulating the situation. Standing in that living room, surrounded by people I'd loved and trusted my entire life, I felt more alone than ever before. The Christmas tree lights that should have created a warm glow now seemed harsh and artificial. The smell of Mom's traditional holiday cooking made my stomach turn. Even the familiar family photos covering every surface looked different, as if I was seeing them through the eyes of a stranger who'd just learned that his whole life had been built on lies and exploitation. I heard myself agreeing to think about their demands, my voice sounding distant and hollow. The words came out automatically, while my mind raced through implications I was only beginning to understand. As I gathered my untouched presents and headed for the door, the twins called out confused goodbyes, still believing their Uncle Gavin was their generous benefactor, rather than another victim of their parents' schemes. The drive back to my apartment through Denver's snow-covered streets gave me time to process what had just occurred. Every holiday memory now felt contaminated. Every family gathering would be viewed through this new lens of manipulation and financial exploitation. The people who should have been my strongest supporters had instead been quietly planning how to use my success for their own benefit. My apartment had never felt more like a sanctuary than it did that Christmas evening. I spread the vacation documents across my kitchen table, under the bright overhead light, studying every detail with the methodical approach I usually reserve for complex software problems. What I discovered during the next several hours shook me to my core and revealed a level of deception far beyond what I'd imagined possible. The confirmation numbers on the travel documents provided my first major breakthrough. Using my laptop, I accessed the booking websites and discovered that whoever had made these reservations possessed detailed personal information that should have been impossible to obtain. My social security number, date of birth, mother's maiden name, and even my first pet's name had all been used to create accounts in my name across multiple travel platforms. A comprehensive credit report check revealed the most disturbing evidence yet. 6 months earlier, someone had successfully applied for a premium travel rewards credit card using my identity. The application had been submitted online with perfect accuracy, including employment verification details that could only have come from someone with intimate knowledge of my professional life. Monthly statements showed a pattern of small test purchases at local gas stations and grocery stores, clearly designed to verify that the stolen card functioned properly before attempting larger transactions. The credit card activity painted a picture of calculated preparation that chilled me. Harold had been making modest purchases for months, establishing a legitimate usage history while learning the card's security protocols. Recent charges included deposits at European hotels, advance payments for tour packages, and travel insurance premiums that totaled nearly $3,000 before the vacation bill had even been presented to me. Social media proved to be another goldmine of incriminating evidence. Jessica's Facebook and Instagram accounts contained dozens of photos from their weekly planning meetings at Romano's restaurant. I scrolled through images of my family huddled around tables covered with travel brochures, laptop computers, and notebook pages filled with handwritten calculations. The timestamps on these photos corresponded exactly with evenings when I had been working late or attending professional development seminars, completely unaware that my financial future was being decided without my input. Lauren arrived at my apartment around 9 that evening, bringing leftover Christmas cookies and her usual infectious optimism. One look at my face told her something serious had happened. As I explained the situation, I watched her expression transform from confusion to disbelief to genuine anger on my behalf. She'd always maintained polite relationships with my family, despite privately expressing concerns about their treatment of me during previous gatherings. Her outside perspective proved invaluable in connecting patterns I'd been too close to recognize. Lauren reminded me of last Thanksgiving when Harold had asked detailed questions about my job responsibilities and salary structure under the guise of fatherly interest. She recalled Jessica's seemingly casual inquiries about my apartment lease terms and monthly expenses during our 4th of July barbecue. Mark's persistent questions about my retirement savings and investment strategies during the summer family reunion suddenly made perfect sense. A phone call to my uncle Robert provided the missing pieces of this puzzle. Robert lived in Phoenix and had maintained minimal contact with our family for nearly a decade following some unspecified disagreement with Harold. When I explained what had happened, his reaction was immediate and unsurprising. He'd suspected something like this might eventually occur. Robert revealed that Harold had attempted similar schemes with other family members over the years. My grandfather's final months had involved mysterious financial transactions that depleted his savings account just before his death. Robert's own relationship with Harold had ended when he discovered forged signatures on loan applications that used his identity for Harold's failed business ventures. Even our cousin Danny in California had warned family members about Harold's requests for financial information and temporary loans that were never repaid. The pattern of manipulation extended beyond simple requests for money. Harold had a documented history of creating elaborate scenarios designed to guilt family members into providing financial support. Medical emergencies that weren't quite as serious as initially described. Business opportunities that required immediate investment to prevent catastrophic losses. Children's educational needs that demanded urgent funding for programs that didn't exist. Further investigation into the European vacation bookings revealed another disturbing detail. Every reservation had been made with full refund policies that could be canceled up to 24 hours before departure. This meant my family could potentially cancel the entire trip, pocket my $8,800 payment, and claim that unforeseen circumstances had forced them to postpone their plans. The refundable nature of these bookings suggested this might not have been intended as a legitimate vacation at all, but rather an elaborate scheme to extract money from my bank account. Bank records going back 2 years showed a pattern of financial exploitation disguised as family emergencies. The $500 I'd provided for Jessica's car repairs had actually funded new living room furniture. The $1,200 Harold had borrowed for construction equipment had been spent on a fishing boat he'd never mentioned owning. The $2,000 I'd contributed to help with the twins' school expenses had coincided with Mark and Jessica's weekend trip to Las Vegas, which they'd claimed was a business conference. As Christmas night turned into early morning hours, Lauren and I compiled a comprehensive timeline of financial manipulation that painted my family as sophisticated con artists rather than loving relatives going through temporary difficulties. The evidence was overwhelming, detailed, and completely heartbreaking. The people I'd trusted most in the world had been systematically stealing from me for years while maintaining the facade of normal family relationships. The law office of Diana Walsh occupied the 15th floor of a downtown Denver high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows offering stunning views of the Rocky Mountains. I'd chosen Diana based on her specialization in family financial fraud cases and her reputation for achieving justice in situations where emotional manipulation complicated legal proceedings. Her professional demeanor and obvious experience provided the first sense of hope I'd felt since Christmas morning. Diana's initial assessment of my situation was both validating and terrifying. The credit card applications using my identity constituted clear cases of identity theft under federal law. The forged signatures on various documents represented multiple felony charges. The systematic collection and misuse of my personal information qualified as organized fraud that could result in significant prison sentences for everyone involved. Security footage from the credit card company provided the smoking gun we needed to prove Harold's direct involvement. Their internal investigation had preserved digital recordings of him visiting their branch office 6 months earlier, presenting himself as me while applying for the travel rewards card. The video clearly showed Harold providing my driver's license number, social security information, and employment details with the confidence of someone who'd thoroughly prepared for this deception. The evidence continued mounting as Diana's investigation revealed the sophisticated nature of my family's planning. Jessica had been secretly recording conversations during family gatherings, using her smartphone, carefully editing these recordings to create false evidence of my verbal agreement to fund various expenses. Audio files recovered from her cloud storage account contained dozens of manipulated conversations spanning more than a year. Text message threads between family members revealed their coordinated strategy with disturbing clarity. Harold had designated himself as the primary planner, Jessica as the emotional manipulator, and Mark as the financial logistics coordinator. Their communications discussed optimal timing for financial requests, methods for accessing my personal information, and backup plans for handling my potential resistance to their demands. Lauren's assistance proved invaluable during the evidence-gathering phase. Her background in corporate human resources had taught her to recognize and document manipulation tactics that I might have overlooked due to my emotional involvement. She helped create detailed timelines showing how each family member had contributed to the overall deception, providing objective analysis that strengthened our legal position considerably. Bank records revealed that Harold had been taking cash advances on the fraudulent credit card for personal expenses completely unrelated to the European vacation. Grocery stores, gas stations, restaurant meals, and even gambling establishments had received payments from the account he'd opened using my identity. The total unauthorized spending exceeded $4,000 before the vacation scheme had even been presented to me. Diana's investigation uncovered another shocking development. Jessica had been filing preliminary paperwork with family court suggesting that I'd agreed to provide ongoing financial support for the twins' educational and cultural development. These documents positioned the European vacation as the first installment in a long-term arrangement where I would fund various experiences deemed beneficial for my niece's growth and development. Mark's involvement proved more extensive than anyone had initially suspected. He'd been telling business associates that I was his silent partner and primary financial backer, using this false credibility to secure contracts and credit arrangements for his struggling construction company. Several vendors had extended payment terms based on Mark's claims about my guaranteed backing of his business operations. The scope of deception extended to my mother, Patricia, who had been unknowingly providing personal information about me during her social activities with neighbors and bridge club members. Harold had been systematically collecting details about my career progress, financial status, and personal relationships through casual conversations with my mother, who believed she was simply sharing proud updates about her son's success. Phone records obtained through legal discovery revealed extensive coordination between family members about timing their demands to coincide with my recent promotion. They'd been monitoring my professional achievements and calculating optimal moments to approach me for financial support based on their assumptions about my increased earning capacity. Diana presented evidence that similar schemes had been attempted against Harold's siblings and other relatives over the past decade. She discovered a pattern of financial manipulation disguised as legitimate family support requests, that had resulted in thousands of dollars being transferred from other victims who were too embarrassed or emotionally conflicted to pursue legal action. The most disturbing revelation came when Diana found evidence that my family had been preparing to use accusations of abuse or mental instability against me if I refused their demands. Text messages discussed strategies for claiming I was emotionally unstable or had threatened family members, creating false justifications for keeping any money I'd already provided while cutting me out of family relationships entirely. Diana's recommendation was clear and strategic. We could pursue criminal charges that would likely result in prison sentences for Harold, Jessica, and Mark. Alternatively, we could implement a carefully planned response that would expose their fraud while protecting my interests and potentially salvaging family relationships if genuine remorse and behavior change occurred. The choice was mine, but she strongly advised taking action that would prevent future victimization of other family members or unsuspecting third parties. The legal consultation concluded with Diana authorized to begin proceedings that would protect me from further financial exploitation while gathering additional evidence of my family's criminal activities. She explained that the next phase would involve setting carefully planned traps that would document their fraudulent activities in real time, creating an ironclad case that would force accountability while giving them opportunities to make better choices before facing the full consequences of their actions. The week between Christmas and New Year's required acting skills I never knew I possessed. Returning to my family home with the pretense of defeated compliance felt like stepping onto a stage where everyone except me knew their lines. I'd practiced my performance with Lauren and Diana, rehearsing expressions of resignation and financial submission that would convince my family their manipulation had succeeded. Harold answered the door with barely concealed triumph when I arrived carrying my checkbook and a manila folder of financial documents Diana had prepared as props. His satisfied smile confirmed that he viewed my return as inevitable capitulation to their demands. The living room had been rearranged since Christmas, with Harold's favorite chair positioned strategically to oversee our financial discussion like a judge presiding over sentencing. I wrote the check for $8,800 with deliberately shaky handwriting, allowing Harold to witness my apparent emotional distress while secretly knowing Diana had arranged for the payment to trigger immediate fraud alerts with my bank. The check would be flagged for identity verification procedures that would require Harold to provide additional documentation he couldn't possibly possess legitimately. Jessica's excitement about the impending vacation provided excellent opportunities to gather additional incriminating evidence. I wore a small recording device Diana had provided, capturing detailed conversations about their planning process and future intentions. Jessica freely admitted they'd been coordinating their scheme for months, describing the weekly meetings at Romano's restaurant and their division of responsibilities for manipulating different aspects of my financial cooperation. During these recorded conversations, Jessica revealed plans to extend their European vacation beyond the original itinerary, using my credit cards for additional shopping excursions and entertainment expenses. She'd researched luxury boutiques in Paris and exclusive restaurants in Rome that she intended to visit using my financial resources. Her casual assumption that my money was available for unlimited spending demonstrated the depth of her entitlement and exploitation mindset. Mark's contribution to our recorded discussions provided equally valuable evidence of their broader criminal intentions. He described business meetings he planned to conduct in Europe, using my credentials as financial backing for his construction company. Several potential investors had agreed to meet with him based on false representations about my involvement in his business operations. Mark viewed the European trip as an opportunity to secure contracts and partnerships using fraudulent claims about my financial support. Lauren's assistance during this evidence-gathering phase proved invaluable. Posing as a representative from the travel insurance company, she called Jessica to verify details about their trip. Jessica provided detailed information about dates, destinations, and financial arrangements, without realizing she was being recorded by someone working to expose her fraud. These conversations captured explicit admissions about using my identity and financial resources without permission. Harold's increasing aggression about timeline and documentation requirements revealed his desperation to secure immediate payment before I could reconsider or discover the extent of their deception. He demanded signed agreements acknowledging my financial responsibility for all vacation expenses, including potential emergency costs that might arise during their travels. His insistence on legal documentation suggested awareness that their scheme constituted criminal activity. Secret surveillance equipment installed in my apartment, with Diana's assistance, captured Harold and Jessica's attempted search through my financial documents. They'd used Mark's locksmith skills to enter my building and apartment, photographing bank statements, investment account information, and personal correspondence that could be useful for future financial exploitation. Their criminal trespass and invasion of privacy added additional charges to our growing legal case. The surveillance recordings revealed family members recruiting extended relatives to pressure me about family loyalty and financial obligations. Aunts, cousins, and family friends had been contacted with false information about my refusal to support the twins' educational opportunities. Harold had been systematically poisoning family relationships by portraying me as selfish and irresponsible for questioning their vacation demands. Diana's coordination with my bank allowed us to monitor every attempt Harold made to access accounts using the fraudulent credit card. His spending pattern accelerated significantly after receiving my check suggesting he viewed my payment as permission to increase his unauthorized use of my financial resources. Restaurant charges, retail purchases, and cash advances created a comprehensive record of ongoing theft that would be impossible to deny or justify. Additional investigation revealed Jessica's manipulation of the twins about my supposed terminal illness. She told Emma and Sophie that their Uncle Gavin was dying of cancer, making this European vacation our final opportunity to create beautiful memories together. This emotional manipulation of innocent children added another dimension of cruelty to their scheme that strengthened our legal position while breaking my heart. Bank cooperation allowed us to establish temporary restrictions on all accounts tied to my identity set to activate automatically when the family attempted to depart for Europe. These restrictions would prevent any transactions using my credentials while allowing normal business operations to continue uninterrupted. The timing would ensure maximum impact when they discovered their fraud had been exposed. Lauren received legal power of attorney over my finances during the family's planned departure, providing additional security against any last-minute attempts to access my accounts or credit facilities. This arrangement ensured that even if they discovered our investigation, they would be unable to retaliate financially while facing the consequences of their criminal activities. Strategic misinformation convinced my family that I was personally handling all travel arrangements and cancellation policies. They believed I had detailed knowledge of booking confirmations, refund procedures, and airline requirements that would make it impossible for them to modify arrangements without my direct involvement. This false confidence prevented them from discovering that Diana had already coordinated with travel companies to expose their fraudulent bookings. As their departure date approached, the tension in family communications became increasingly obvious. Text messages between Harold, Jessica, and Mark revealed growing anxiety about potential problems with their scheme. They'd begun discussing backup plans for handling my possible resistance, including strategies for keeping my money even if the vacation needed to be postponed or canceled. The final phase of our preparation involved coordinating with airport security and fraud investigators who would be waiting when my family attempted to check in for their flights. Diana had provided detailed evidence packages to appropriate authorities, ensuring that criminal proceedings could begin immediately when the fraud was exposed. Everything was perfectly positioned for justice to be served at the moment they thought they'd successfully stolen my money and betrayed my trust. Denver International Airport buzzed with typical early morning activity as my family arrived for their 8:30 flight to Paris. I watched the security footage later with Diana, but even secondhand, the scene was devastating to witness. Harold, Jessica, Mark, and the twins approached the departure terminal loaded with expensive new luggage that had been purchased using my fraudulent credit card. Their excitement was palpable, with Emma and Sophie chattering about their upcoming adventures while their parents basked in what they believed was their successful manipulation of Uncle Gavin. The first indication of trouble came at the parking garage when Jessica's credit card was declined for the $35 daily parking fee. She laughed nervously while fishing through her wallet for cash, making jokes about credit card processing problems that would surely resolve themselves quickly. Harold's irritation was already visible as he counted out exact change, muttering about incompetent bank systems and poor timing. At the airline check-in counter, their false confidence began crumbling rapidly. The cheerful customer service representative informed them that all tickets had been canceled due to fraudulent payment methods and identity theft reports filed with federal authorities. Harold's face transformed from confusion to anger as he demanded to speak with supervisors, insisting there had been some terrible mistake in their computer systems. Jessica's immediate response was to call me frantically, but Lauren answered my phone as we'd planned. She calmly explained that I was unavailable and suggested they contact their credit card companies to resolve any payment issues. The sound of Jessica's voice becoming increasingly shrill as she realized the scope of their predicament was audible even from Lauren's end of the call. Mark attempted to use his construction industry connections to resolve what he initially assumed was a simple booking error. His phone calls to business associates quickly revealed that his company's credit had been suspended pending investigation of fraudulent financial claims. The vendors who'd extended payment terms based on my supposed backing were demanding immediate settlement of outstanding accounts. The situation escalated dramatically when airport security arrived in response to Harold's increasingly aggressive behavior toward airline staff. His demands for immediate resolution and threats about legal action against the airline attracted the attention of other passengers and airport personnel. The twins began crying as they sensed their parents' growing panic and frustration. Credit card fraud investigators had been waiting for exactly this moment. They approached my family with badges and documentation explaining that they were conducting an active investigation into identity theft and financial fraud associated with their travel arrangements. Harold's attempt to maintain innocence crumbled as investigators presented evidence of forged applications and unauthorized use of my personal information. Jessica's complete emotional breakdown in front of her daughters created a scene that drew crowds of curious onlookers. She screamed about how I had ruined everything, alternating between blaming me for their situation and begging investigators to understand that this was all a family misunderstanding. Her hysteria frightened Emma and Sophie, who clung to each other while trying to understand why their mother was acting so strangely. Mark's attempt to flee, when he realized the legal consequences, proved futile, as airport security had been alerted to prevent anyone in their party from leaving until investigations were completed. His obvious guilt and panic, when approached by authorities, confirmed their suspicions about his active participation in the fraud scheme. The twins' reaction to discovering that their dream vacation was never real provided the most heartbreaking element of the entire situation. Emma and Sophie had packed carefully for weeks, studying European guidebooks and learning basic French phrases in preparation for their adventure. Learning that everything had been built on lies and theft devastated these innocent children who trusted their parents completely. Patricia's desperate phone calls to family members and friends revealed the extent of Harold's manipulation within their social circle. She'd been unaware of his criminal activities and was genuinely shocked to learn about the systematic identity theft and financial fraud. Her conversations with extended relatives exposed additional victims who'd been too embarrassed to report Harold's previous schemes. Airport police discovered thousands of dollars worth of luxury merchandise in the family's luggage, all purchased using my stolen credit card information. Designer clothing, electronics, jewelry, and expensive accessories filled their suitcases alongside vacation clothing. The scope of their unauthorized spending demonstrated that the European trip had been only part of a much larger theft operation. Fraud investigators revealed that Harold's criminal activities extended beyond my case to include similar schemes targeting other individuals. His sophisticated methods for obtaining personal information and creating false documentation suggested experience with identity theft that spanned several years. The travel fraud was apparently his most ambitious attempt, but followed patterns established through smaller previous operations. Jessica's phone contained text messages to extended family members begging for emergency funds to salvage their vacation. She'd been contacting aunts, cousins, and family friends with increasingly desperate pleas for immediate financial assistance, claiming that technical problems with their credit cards could be resolved if relatives provided temporary funding for their trip. Harold's threats against airline personnel escalated to the point where additional security was called to prevent him from becoming physically violent. His inability to accept responsibility for their situation and continued demands that others fix problems he'd created demonstrated the manipulative personality that had enabled years of financial exploitation against family members. Mark's construction business received simultaneous calls from vendors demanding immediate payment for work completed using fraudulent credit arrangements. His false claims about my financial backing had enabled him to secure contracts and materials that his company couldn't actually afford, creating a cascade of business failures that extended far beyond their personal legal troubles. The twins overheard Jessica admitting she'd been unemployed for 8 months while maintaining the illusion of financial stability. Emma and Sophie learned that their family had been living far beyond their means, using stolen money and fraudulent credit to maintain their lifestyle. The psychological impact of discovering their parents' deception added another layer of trauma to an already devastating situation. As airport authorities separated family members for individual questioning, the magnitude of their scheme became fully apparent. What had begun as a family vacation demand had exposed a complex network of identity theft, financial fraud, and emotional manipulation that had been operating for years. Justice was finally being served, but the cost to family relationships and innocent children was heartbreaking to witness. The Jefferson County Courthouse became the stage for accountability 6 weeks after the airport incident. Harold, Jessica, and Mark each faced separate charges for identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and various financial crimes that carried potential prison sentences ranging from 18 months to 5 years. The legal proceedings moved swiftly due to the overwhelming evidence Diana had prepared and the defendant's inability to mount credible defenses. My appearance as the primary witness shocked my family members, who had somehow convinced themselves that I was merely another victim caught up in their legal troubles. Diana's presentation of our evidence package revealed the systematic documentation we'd gathered, including recorded conversations, financial records, and surveillance footage that demonstrated my active role in exposing their criminal activities rather than passive discovery of their schemes. The recorded conversations played in open court provided devastating testimony about the calculating nature of their exploitation. Harold's voice clearly discussing strategies for manipulating my emotions. Jessica's detailed plans for extending unauthorized spending during their vacation, and Mark's schemes for using my credentials to secure business contracts created an undeniable record of premeditated fraud. Jessica's unemployment benefits investigation began when social services examined the twins' living situation following their parents' arrest. Investigators discovered she'd been collecting benefits while reporting false information about job searches and income sources. The welfare fraud charges added additional legal complications that could affect her custody rights and financial restitution obligations. Mark's construction company faced immediate bankruptcy proceedings as vendors demanded payment for work completed using fraudulent credit arrangements. His false claims about my financial backing had enabled him to secure contracts worth over $40,000 that his company couldn't legitimately afford. The business failure affected 12 employees who lost their jobs when the company's assets were seized to satisfy creditor claims. Harold's prior history of financial manipulation became crucial evidence, establishing a pattern of criminal behavior spanning more than a decade. Diana presented testimony from Uncle Robert and other family members, documenting similar schemes that had targeted elderly relatives, siblings, and family friends. The pattern evidence strengthened prosecutors' arguments for maximum sentencing under repeat offender guidelines. Patricia's divorce proceedings revealed the extent of Harold's deception within their marriage. Financial records showed he'd been concealing income, misrepresenting debts, and using her personal information for fraudulent applications without her knowledge. Her cooperation with prosecutors included providing access to family documents that revealed additional evidence of Harold's criminal activities. The twins' custody hearing provided the most emotionally difficult aspect of the legal proceedings. Emma and Sophie required extensive counseling to address trauma from discovering their parents' deception and criminal behavior. Court-appointed psychologists documented the emotional manipulation Jessica had used to control her daughter's behavior, including false stories about my illness and fabricated promises about future vacations and experiences. Diana's presentation of my financial losses over the previous 10 years totaled more than $50,000 in various schemes disguised as family emergencies and legitimate support requests. Bank records, canceled checks, and transfer documentation painted a comprehensive picture of systematic exploitation that had been occurring since my graduation from college and entry into professional employment. Jessica's desperate courtroom attempt to reconcile with me in exchange for requesting reduced charges backfired when prosecutors played recordings of her conversations with Mark about strategies for manipulating my emotions during legal proceedings. Her apparent remorse was revealed as another calculated attempt to minimize consequences rather than genuine acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Extended family members came forward during the trial with their own stories of Harold's financial manipulation and fraud attempts. Cousins from California testified about suspicious loan requests and identity theft attempts. Former business partners described similar patterns of deception in Harold's construction operations that had cost them money and professional relationships over the years. Court-mandated restitution required liquidation of all luxury purchases made using my stolen credit card information. The designer clothing, electronics, and expensive accessories found in their luggage at the airport were sold at public auction, along with Harold's fishing boat, Jessica's jewelry collection, and other assets purchased through fraudulent means. The proceeds barely covered 20% of the total financial damages they'd caused. Harold's construction business faced additional investigation for potential workers' compensation fraud and tax evasion that dated back several years. State regulators discovered false reporting about employee counts, project values, and safety compliance that suggested systematic dishonesty in his business operations. The investigation resulted in additional civil penalties and license revocation that prevented him from working in construction after his release from prison. Mark's plea bargain revealed his cooperation in providing evidence about additional fraud schemes involving fake business partnerships and unauthorized credit applications. His testimony exposed a network of small contractors who'd been manipulated into providing services based on false financial guarantees. The scope of deception extended far beyond my family situation to affect dozens of local businesses and individual victims. The sentencing hearing provided opportunities for victim impact statements that revealed the emotional devastation caused by their criminal activities. Emma and Sophie's counselor testified about the long-term psychological effects of parental manipulation and deception. Uncle Robert described how Harold's previous schemes had destroyed family relationships and created lasting distrust among relatives. All three defendants ultimately accepted plea bargains to avoid longer prison sentences that would have resulted from trial convictions. Harold received 18 months in minimum security prison with mandatory financial counseling and restitution requirements. Jessica was sentenced to 12 months in county jail with community service and supervised probation. Mark received 15 months in prison with additional civil penalties for business fraud. The legal resolution provided justice and accountability, but the emotional wreckage within family relationships would require years to repair. The twins faced ongoing counseling and therapy to address trust issues created by their parents' systematic deception. Patricia's divorce and financial recovery would take considerable time and effort. The broader family network remained divided between those who supported accountability and others who blamed me for pursuing legal action against relatives. 18 months after that devastating Christmas morning, I found myself sitting in the same living room where Harold had first presented his fraudulent vacation bill, but everything had changed in ways I could never have imagined. The house belonged to Patricia, now following her divorce settlement, and she'd transformed it from a place of manipulation and secrets into a genuine home where honest conversations and healthy boundaries were not only possible but expected. Harold had served his minimum security prison sentence while participating in mandatory financial counseling programs designed to address the psychological patterns that enabled his decades of manipulation and theft. His release came with strict parole supervision and court-ordered therapy sessions that continued monitoring his behavior and decision-making processes. The experience had forced him to confront the reality of his actions and their impact on every relationship in his life. Jessica completed her county jail sentence and community service hours working with nonprofit organizations that assisted victims of financial fraud. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that she was now helping people recover from crimes similar to those she'd committed against her own family. Her court-mandated financial responsibility courses included education about budgeting, credit management, and legitimate earning strategies that replaced her previous reliance on manipulation and deception. Mark's bankruptcy had forced him to abandon his failed construction company and accept employment as a crew supervisor with a reputable contractor who specialized in commercial renovation projects. The steady paycheck and honest work environment provided structure he'd never experienced during his years of chasing quick profits through fraudulent schemes. His pride had been damaged by losing his business ownership status, but his family's financial stability had improved significantly. The twins represented the brightest element of our family's recovery process. Emma and Sophie continued living with Patricia in an environment free from financial stress and parental manipulation. Their therapy sessions had helped them understand that they weren't responsible for their parents' choices while learning to rebuild trust through consistent, honest relationships with caring adults who prioritize their emotional well-being above financial gain. My decision to establish educational trust funds for both girls using the restitution money recovered through legal proceedings created positive outcomes from devastating circumstances. Diana's legal expertise ensured the trust structures prevented any parental access to funds while providing comprehensive support for legitimate educational expenses, extracurricular activities, and future college costs. The girls understood that their Uncle Gavin cared about their futures while maintaining appropriate boundaries that protected everyone involved. Lauren's presence throughout this ordeal had strengthened our relationship in ways that convinced us both we were ready for marriage. Her patient support during the darkest periods and her practical assistance with legal proceedings demonstrated the kind of partnership I'd always hoped to find but never expected to discover through such painful circumstances. Our engagement represented hope for building healthy relationships based on honesty, respect, and genuine love, rather than obligation or manipulation. Uncle Robert's reconnection with our family provided the twins with a stable male role model who demonstrated integrity and emotional availability without the toxic patterns Harold had normalized. His visits from Phoenix brought laughter and adventure into their lives while showing them how men could be trustworthy, supportive, and genuinely interested in their thoughts and feelings without expecting anything in return. My career advancement continued progressing as the crisis resolution skills I developed through this experience translated into valuable professional capabilities. The consulting firm recognized my ability to analyze complex problems, manage difficult personalities, and implement systematic solutions under pressure. My promotion to senior project manager led to opportunities for leading major client accounts and mentoring junior staff members. Patricia's transformation from enabler to advocate represented one of the most remarkable aspects of our family's healing process. Her willingness to acknowledge Harold's manipulation and her own role in perpetuating unhealthy patterns had enabled her to create new relationships based on truth and mutual respect. Her hosting of family gatherings now included clear financial boundaries and open communication about expectations and limitations. Jessica's relationship with her daughters required careful rebuilding under supervision from family court services and child psychology professionals. Supervised visitation sessions gradually expanded to include overnight stays and weekend activities as Jessica demonstrated consistent honesty and emotional stability. Her acknowledgement of past mistakes and commitment to ongoing therapy showed genuine remorse that provided hope for eventual healing. Harold's participation in family activities remained limited and carefully monitored by his parole officer, but his attendance at significant events like birthday parties and school performances showed respect for boundaries while maintaining connections with his granddaughters. His behavior had become noticeably different, with genuine humility replacing his previous entitlement and manipulation tactics. The broader extended family slowly began healing as Harold's toxic influence was removed from holiday gatherings and family communications. Cousins, aunts, and uncles who had been manipulated or victimized by his previous schemes found courage to share their experiences and support each other's recovery. Family reunions became celebrations of authentic relationships rather than opportunities for financial exploitation. Diana's continued role as our family legal advisor helped establish protocols that would prevent future manipulation while preserving legitimate family connections. Her expertise in recognizing manipulation patterns and establishing protective legal structures gave everyone confidence that we could maintain loving relationships without vulnerability to financial abuse. My personal growth through this experience included learning to recognize early warning signs of manipulation while developing skills for maintaining compassionate relationships with appropriate boundaries. The painful lesson of distinguishing between supporting family and enabling destructive behavior had transformed my understanding of love, loyalty, and responsibility. I understood now that sometimes the most loving action requires enforcing consequences that protect everyone involved. The spring wedding Lauren and I planned included Emma and Sophie as flower girls, symbolizing hope for future family relationships built on honesty and genuine affection. Harold's attendance was supervised by his parole officer, but his presence represented acknowledgement that healing was possible even after devastating betrayal. The ceremony celebrated not just our love for each other, but our commitment to creating healthy family patterns for future generations. Family holiday celebrations resumed with Patricia hosting gatherings that included clear expectations about gift-giving, financial contributions, and respectful behavior. The artificial pressure and hidden agendas that had poisoned previous holidays were replaced by genuine appreciation for time spent together. Christmas morning now brought actual joy instead of anxiety about potential manipulation or hidden demands. The educational trust funds enabled Emma and Sophie to participate in enriching activities like music lessons, art classes, and educational travel programs that broadened their horizons while teaching them about honest earning and responsible spending. Their excitement about legitimate opportunities replaced the confusion and disappointment they'd experienced when promises were built on lies and theft. As I reflected on the journey from that terrible Christmas morning to our current family stability, the most important lesson became clear. Protecting yourself from exploitation doesn't require abandoning love or cutting off family relationships entirely. Sometimes legal action and firm boundaries create the structure necessary for genuine healing and authentic connection to develop. The difference between supporting family and enabling destructive behavior had become a guiding principle for all my relationships. Standing in Patricia's living room surrounded by family members who had learned to be honest with each other, I realized that justice had accomplished more than punishment. Accountability had created space for transformation, forgiveness, and the kind of family relationships we'd all secretly hoped were possible. The twins' laughter filled the house with genuine happiness that could never have existed while built on deception and manipulation. The final element of healing came through recognizing that my parents' failures didn't define my capacity for love or family success. Lauren and I were building our marriage on foundations of honesty, respect, and mutual support that would protect our future children from experiencing the manipulation and exploitation that had nearly destroyed our extended family relationships. What started as the worst Christmas of my life had ultimately led to the best year of personal growth, authentic relationships, and hope for the future I'd ever experienced. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals force necessary changes that enable healing and transformation beyond what anyone thought possible. The courage to seek justice and establish boundaries had saved not just my financial security, but our entire family's capacity for genuine love and trust. Have you ever faced a situation where family members tried to take advantage of your success or generosity? How did you handle setting boundaries with people you love while still maintaining relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and financial manipulation. Sharing this video might help someone else recognize similar patterns in their own relationships. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember that protecting yourself from exploitation is sometimes the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved. I hope you have the strength to recognize your worth and demand the respect you deserve from the people who claim to love you.